Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we have the slightly supernatural ensemble epic triple feature.
With all these things that I've done.
That's right, this week we're looking at three films that have enormous casts that are spread out all over the place, telling a gigantic story that is just a little bit on the weird side to varying degrees. Our menu is going to include Magnolia, Southland Tales, and Cloud Atlas. You do get fun common threads throughout these films, or common motifs. The opening, where we introduce all the characters in fairly rapid succession, only to be explained in greater detail in just a moment. Narrators giving you a rough idea of what's going on. With Southland Tales, it becomes much more needed as the movie is there's a lot going on in Southland Tales. Magnolia and Cloud Atlas, less so in terms of, you won't be able to figure it out, which Southland Tales, I will acknowledge it is an issue. Also, there tends to be some sort of musical number in all of these three. In Magnolia, there is a moment where everybody is singing the same Amy Mann song, Wise Up. In Southland Tales, Pilot Abilene, played by Justin Timberlake, takes drugs and starts singing along to Killers, These Things That I've Done, in the manner of a lavish movie musical number. And Cloud Atlas, it's not so much everybody gets around and dances, but Robert Frobisher is composing music throughout the whole film, and it ends up becoming a recurring tune in all the different timelines in different ways, which becomes really, really clever and neat. Oh, the thing about this triple feature is that I could go on at length about all three of these movies, so I'm going to try to keep it, under an hour with the talking. Magnolia is just an incredible film. Paul Thomas Anderson's third film after Hard Eight and Boogie Nights. It is just a gigantic film. All these movies are, either 3 hours or just under 3 hours. And whereas Boogie Nights had just a fairly large cast, but that was very focused, this has an equally large, if not larger cast that's spread out all over the place. But generally revolving around two things. One, this little block in LA, and or this game show called What Do Kids Know? Every character ties back to one of these two things. The main goal of the film is to explore how people interact with each other. Most of these people have wronged or been wronged by each other in some way, and are trying to figure out how to deal with it and what to do about it. Whether or not they're the victim or the transgressor, or if it's just life has gotten weird. That's another key point in this movie and the slightly supernatural aspect. In Magnolia, it's presented as coincidence, but a coincidences that strain credulity to the point where it can't be coincidence. There has to be something else going on that's guiding the events. Whether or not there is that's up for the audience, to figure out. What we're left with is just a lot of fun vignettes that build and build and build to a crescendo, which is just, it's biblical, and I'll just leave it at that. Performing this whole thing is just an absurd cast, and I looked back. I don't understand why this cast didn't win every award, because everybody is incredible. There's Julianne Moore, here's the thing. All these people are going to bring you to tears at one point in the film, but in a good way, well, not the best way, because the best way would be you're laughing so hard you're crying. This one, it's brutal. Everybody is basically strained to a breaking point, and everybody kind of breaks at one point in this movie. Amongst everybody that's incredible, you have, just as your main cast, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, the equally late Jason Robards, Melora Hardin, Philip Baker Hall, Melinda Dillon, and Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise? Oh, and I don't know the name of the kid playing Stanley Spector because, I mean, come on. Including Tom Cruise is just incredible. This is, in fact, Tom Cruise's just best performance, this side of Cocktail. Everybody is brutal, and everybody just has these great moments. And those are just the main people. There's all sorts of random people peppered throughout this movie, like Henry Gibson, Alfred Molina, Luis Guzman, a lot of, Boogie Nights alumni. April Grace, Michael Bowen, Ricky Jay, who provides the opening and closing narration. And then you get these random people. Orlando Jones, you don't really know it's him because of the way it's cut, but Orlando Jones is playing the Worm. Patton Oswalt is in there. And everybody at the top of their games and just completely killing it with every single performance. It's long, but it's so rewarding if you stick with it. You gotta believe me. Which is going to be a running theme through all of these ones. For the most part, it was critically acclaimed. Did not do as well box office-wise as everybody had hoped. But everybody loved it. And so it might be weird that I'm saying you got to stick with it. But, a lot of but it's not always a given. Like, say, with our number 2 film, Southland Tales. A movie for which I have been scolded for showing it to people. I showed it to my dad and my brother, and at the end of the movie, my dad just said, "Don't ever do that again." I unabashedly love this film. Southland Tales is endlessly fascinating for me. Richard E. Kelly's second movie, follow-up to the independent film darling Donnie Darko. Much like Magnolia, giant, sprawling, epic casts. This is still set in L.A., but in L.A. in an alternate present. It's set in 2008, or it was made in 2008, and it's set in 2008. But America has gone a little bit different after a nuclear attack on Texas. Can you imagine anybody having any sort of problem with Texas? And so World War III has started up, and everything has gone bonkers, mainly because World War III is basically against all the oil-producing countries. And as such, we need an alternative fuel source. Scientist named the Baron Westphalen comes up with is fluid karma, a simulated perpetual motion machine, which is in fact sort of destroying the world, but don't worry too much about that. Everything is sort of coming to a head in the lead up to the July 4th of 2008. There is, an election, a presidential election, which is going to be decided by basically California, and more specifically this one district, the Southland, which is a problem because everybody there is insane, not the least of which is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Boxer Centauros, an Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque action star who went missing and has recently popped up and is sort of kind of crazy. He is the son-in-law of Robert Frost, the vice presidential candidate, and as such, political things abound. It's so hard to explain Southland Tales in just, a few short sentences. So Boxer Centauros is trying to make his movie. Actually, no. You can't. You just can't do it. It is too crazy. Basically, the world is ending. There's a lot of crazy sci-fi things happening. Well, I say crazy sci-fi. It's actually a pretty good example of how much you can accomplish on a lower budget in terms of sci-fi by presenting the world as something of a dystopian alternate present, because it's not really the future, even though we have, free perpetual energy, sort of. Everybody's great in it, but, if you don't buy into the movie at the beginning, you're not going to like it at all, and it's going to go on for a while, and there's going to be a lot of weird stuff you're going to have to deal with, like Sarah Michelle Gellar as a porn star named Krista Now, Sean William Scott playing twins, 3 different generations of Saturday Night Live women, Nora Dunn, Sherry O'Terry, and Amy Poehler, none of them playing comedic parts. I was really impressed with Sherry O'Terry in this movie because she really goes for it, and it's pretty scary, by chokeholding Christopher Lambert, who is in this movie as well. This movie, the cast, I mean, Magnolia had a big cast, but the Southland Tales cast is just beyond nuts. You got Holmes Osborne as Bobby Frost, John Larroquette as his major domo, Miranda Richardson playing Nana Mae Frost, Bobby's wife, who, as near as I can tell, doesn't really leave the one set she's on, so I wonder if they just filmed all her stuff in one day. John Lovitz, also of Saturday Night Live, is playing a scary bleached blonde police officer. Wood Harris from The Wire is bouncing around as Amy Poehler's acting partner. Will Sasso is kind of playing all sides against each other, but brings our Mad TV casts up to 2 for this triple feature. Jeannie Garofalo is there in sort of a blink and you'll miss it moment. She was in the movie more, but they had to cut it down to like 3 hours. Her character actually plays a bigger role in the prequel comic, which I actually have, and it has. You'll notice that the movie has chapter breaks that start 4, 5, that go 4, 5, and 6. This, as you can see, is 1, 2, and 3. Having read it, does the movie make sense now? No, not even a little. But you understand a bit more of who everybody is to each other and why. Like, say, Mandy Moore playing Boxer Santeros' wife, or Kevin Smith, who is randomly playing a amputee war veteran to counterpart Justin Timberlake playing another war veteran. And he's also our narrator. Are you starting to see just how off the rails this movie is? Baron Westphalen is the always great Wallace Shawn, and his entourage consists of Curtis Armstrong, Zelda Rubinstein, Beth Grant, and a insanely skinny Bai Ling. And I can't even talk about the plot in any sort of way. The world is coming to an end. Boxer Santeros disappeared and then reappeared after going through some sort of time warp, along with Roland Tavener. One of them is the Messiah. The other, probably not. But it's up to you to figure out which one is which. Everybody's trying to screw over everybody else. And, no, it all ends in explosions and portals to other dimensions. And yet nobody liked this movie but me. I don't understand. This was just gold. My working title for this triple feature was Tom Wants to Thank You for Making This Movie. And I do. I want to thank everybody who made all of these movies for having the guts to come up with the idea, to getting people to sign up with it, and especially for all the cast, because in all 3 of these movies, nobody's phoning it in. Nobody's like tongue-in-cheeking it at all. Everybody is committed to the idea, and they all think the idea is great. And god damn it, it was! Including Southland Tales. It's crazy, don't get me wrong, but I think there's really a lot of interesting stuff in it. Now, whereas, for the most part, everybody, critics loved Magnolia, but the movie didn't make any money, and whereas Southland Tales nobody liked, and it made no money, Cloud Atlas is sort of split down the middle. Critics, it's 50-50, whether or not they liked it. Did it make money? Not a hell of a lot. 3 directors, Andy and Lana Wachowski, and the German director Tom Twyker of Run Lola Run fame, adapting David Mitchell's novel of the same name. 6 storylines, all interconnected, going throughout time from the time of American slavery all the way up to 106 years past the apocalypse. Oh my god, this movie. It is, I've talked about it before, it is still one of, if not my absolute favorite movie. Well, maybe not favorite movie, but I think this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. Still. While this one does not have as gigantic a cast as the other films, it sort of makes up for it in the fact that the cast is playing multiple roles, as each of the 6 time periods, the cast consists of the same actors, but with different makeups, different parts, different accents, and it becomes quite fascinating. Everybody is mixing and matching because one of the points of the story is that it's not 6 different stories. It's all one story. It's one story of humanity and the pitfalls that we fall into trying to make our lives better and trying to help other people, and how if we keep at it, we're going to make it. We promise. Or this movie promises, at least. I have no idea if we're going to make it. But the movie gives me hope because everybody is great in it. You have Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, Jim Broadbent, Ben Whishaw, James Darcy, Jim Sturgis, Dunabay, and of course Hugo Weaving, because Wachowskis. And all of it's beautiful. It's brilliantly shot. All as the after all the stories or the time periods are established and the stories become more interchangeable, the changes happen almost seamlessly because it is just one story of trying to to provide or obtain freedom despite all sorts of craziness abounding. All the horror, the ridiculous obstacles we set in the way of it, and it's just beautiful. It looks gorgeous. The soundtrack is incredible, and yet there are people out there that don't like it, that get hung up on the makeup effects because they're either not good or they're racist or they're both. And I will acknowledge a lot of these noses don't look good on these actors. They're very jarring and sort of obvious. We're trying to change the person's face, but you gotta buy into the movie a little bit and suspend disbelief to make it work. And unlike Southland Tales, where there's a good chance you're not going to like it at the end, I swear to you, if you stick with it with Cloud Atlas, it will change your life and make you, or at the very least, it will make you happier for the day. So, can't really talk about much more without giving anything away. So, until next week, these are the slightly supernatural ensemble epics: Magnolia, Southland Tales, and Cloud Atlas.